Welcome to the Bookish Wonderland. It's your host, Ari here, and today's episode is a writing episode because it is officially November, and November to a lot of writers is the month where we get stuff done, or we set writing goals, or we want to spend this nice, cozy, fun time focusing on our work in progress. We're doing writing challenges, we're working on our work in progresses, or anything like that. In the past, November was associated with National Novel Writing Month. And in recent years, we do not associate it with that anymore as a writer. If you're in the online writing community, I should say that to clarify. But a lot of writing platforms and writers still use November as their designated writing month, whether it's to finish a current work in progress or project, or to set a writing goal, or to challenge themselves, like, let me try and write a novel within a month, or let me try and write X amount of words in a month, whether it's 50,000, 65,000, or even 25,000, whatever it is that you're trying to write. And even though I'm no longer participating in any sort of like novel writing platform, or anything like that, I still also wanted to use November as my month to get back into my writing, and specifically to finish one of my work in progress. I have been working on a few projects. I've been moving back and forth between them. But for this month, for November 2025, I want to focus on and try to finish my Alice in Wonderland retelling. For all of November, the podcast episodes are all going to be on writing. You're going to get snippets of my writing journey. I will voice my concerns, anger, frustration, feelings, all the things related to writing, but also just writing my work in progress, writing my manuscript for my novel, because it's been a long time coming. I mean, I've had this idea for this Alice in Wonderland retelling or Alice in Wonderland inspired novel for years. When I say years, I mean since 2017, 2018, around that time. If I want to say a definite year, it would be 2017, around this time in 2017. That's when I had the idea for this book, and it has been something I've been working on and off since 2017. And I thought I would talk a little bit about that and why I'm doing this challenge. So for those of you who are new and don't know, I am an aspiring writer. I mostly have written short stories in the past, poetry. I have written a novel before during November in the span of a month. I wrote it many, many years ago when I was still a teenager. And when I say a teenager, I mean around the age between 18 and 19 years old. I wrote this book, and I have not tried to get it published. I will probably not get it published. It will never see the light of day. I've had a handful of friends, close friends, and who have read it and who have, liked it, loved it, said they cried. I put a lot of emotion and trauma into that first novel, mostly to just get it all out, and then also to just say, hey, I could write a novel in a month. I am capable of doing this. And I did it. It was over 50,000 words. It is still sitting on my hard drive, in my iCloud, even my Google Drive, just collecting dust, collecting digital dust. It has not been touched. It has not been edited since I first wrote it. I have not reread it. It has not seen the light of day. And sometimes I think about revisiting it, and then other times I'm like, no, I'm good. But in between that novel and now, I have written some creative nonfiction essays. I've written a couple of script samples and screenplay ideas and samples of that. I've written poetry. I've written a lot of short stories. Some which I have tried publishing on the internet, some which I've just kept to myself, either on my hard drive or in my journal or random notebooks that I own, because of course I do have a large notebook collection that I keep adding to, and there's no quitting. But that's mostly what I've written in the past. And again, I've shared my short stories with friends. I've shared my short stories on the internet. And to no great reception on the internet. But for my friends and people close to me, they're like, oh, it's good and blah, 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 or whatever. And I'm like struggling with the whole imposter syndrome thing. Like, you must be lying. I don't believe you. But, that's just a confidence thing. So I've mostly written that in the past, and I've had novel ideas. I mean, really good ideas that, of course, could be really great novels. Have I touched them? No. Have I finished them? No. I've probably written like a couple of chapters here and there, maybe some scenes, maybe some quick notes for the idea, and then it, again, stays in a folder on my computer or in my hard drive, never sees the light of day. But at the age of 19, yeah, that's about right. At the age of 19, I took a year off from school. I went to college straight out of high school, to a small college that I will not talk about, and was there for a year, mostly to pull my GPA up a little bit higher, just to get into my dream school. Got into my dream school, got a partial scholarship to my dream school, and, with financial aid and everything, it would be a little too expensive even with that partial scholarship. And my mother advised me saying, hey, if you go to this school, you're going to be taking out huge, huge amounts of student loans, because college, university is not free where I am. So you would be taking out a huge amount of student loans. And if I even take out the loans with you, that will be a huge amount of debt on me. I don't want you to be burdened by that huge amount of debt when you graduate. And I don't want to be burdened by that huge amount of debt before or after you graduate. So maybe you should choose a different school to go to. Maybe look for a backup school. Did you have any backup schools? It was a whole thing. And of course, I was very brokenhearted and disappointed and everything, because this is the dream school that I wanted to go to, and I can't go because it's too expensive. And sure, I probably could have taken out all the loans in the world and everything, but I know people who went to my dream school. I'm not going to name it. Not on the podcast. The school is mentioned in my novel a lot, because that's also the dream school of my main character. So when you read the book, eventually one day, hopefully, you will know what that school was and why I wanted to go there so bad. The reason why I wanted to go there and the reason why my MC wants to go there, two different reasons, but along the same wavelength. We're both artists. But anyway, I was very disappointed. I was like, I have no backup plan, because that was the school and, and everything. So I was like, So I took a year off to kind of sort of figure out my backup plan. I was working, a little part-time internship at the time. And then while I was working maybe 4 to 5 days, I believe it was 4 days a week, because I couldn't work no more than 20 something hours. I remember that. I was working, and then when I wasn't working, I would be at home. All my friends were off at school, off at college, or they were working, but working full time, working hours that I didn't. So I would be by myself a lot. I would occasionally, hop on the train or hop on the bus, go to the bookstore, go to Starbucks, go to a cafe or something, explore around Atlanta, blah, 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 whatever. And in doing that, I was like, I could essentially write a novel set here in Atlanta, set where I grew up and where I lived, and, doing all this exploring and everything. I'm getting really inspired by a lot of the locations that I've never really visited when I was young, but I'm visiting more so now that, I'm a teenager and I have my Breeze card and I could go wherever I want on my days off, as long as I was back before it got dark, so my mom wouldn't worry where I was all the time. So it was during this year off where, when I was exploring and everything, I was getting really inspired to write. And I especially was rereading a lot of my favorite books. And one of the books I was rereading was Alice in Wonderland, one of my favorite books of all time. And I got inspired by several things. Not only the city that I lived in that I was constantly exploring, but also certain artists and music that I was listening to at the time, a few shows that I was watching at the time. Of course, Alice in Wonderland was the blueprint of, my inspiration. And then also just that age where I was really discovering myself, reflecting on my experiences and things like that, and the struggles of my teenage youth, and I want to kind of accumulate everything into some sort of novel, but I didn't know exactly what that novel would be. And of course, because I am an artist who dabbles in all kinds of forms, fun fact, before I decided I wanted to be a writer, up until I was maybe 14 years old, I thought I was going to be a fashion designer. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go to my dream school originally. But when I got older, I decided I wanted to be a writer. And then I found out that they had a really good creative writing / screenwriting program. And I was like, I want to do that instead. Screenwriting and playwriting, and blah, blah, blah. And write novels on the side and, just all forms of writing. I just want my pen to be the paper, and I wanted words to spill out of my head all the time. So I wanted to be a fashion designer first, and then I switched careers. So I'm at home, and because I used to want to be a fashion designer, I have some semi-good drawing skills, mostly when it comes to drawing outfits and costumes. Don't get me started on how I got into theater and how that really, really changed my life and everything. But I still had my old fashioned sketchbook, with the silhouettes in it and everything, the little mannequin templates and freeform drawing paper. And I was sitting on the couch listening to music and playing a TV show in the background because I am very chaotic, having all kinds of background noise. And I was rereading Alice in Wonderland, and I started drawing costumes for my characters, like what they look like, what they wear, their hair and everything, and blah, blah, blah. And I got so into drawing it that I started creating notes based off of the drawings. Like, okay, this is my White Rabbit character, obviously, because she has the pocket watch chain belt, and she has these rabbit ear headband and wild curly hair and blah, blah, blah. And she looks really good in these colors, and her favorite colors are pink and white and, and blah, blah, blah. And I started drawing my main character. And then as I was taking notes, based off of the drawings, I started to really form my characters. And one song that came on my playlist by one of my favorite artists, I saw the ending of my novel clearly, like a music video playing in my head. I saw it so clearly, every detail, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is downtown. Oh my gosh, is this a book? Is this a book? I have the ending. I have characters. I have looks. I have ideas and themes, and I have an ending. I just need to figure out a beginning and everything else in the middle. So that's what I've been doing for the past several years, is doing that. I've made several outlines. I've written several scenes. I've made so many templates and things. I have a whole notebook full of all these ideas. I even made photocopies of my original drawings and pasted them in these notebooks, and was taking notes and taking pictures. And every time I went out, I would take a lot of pictures and videos and locations and everything. So this is my Alice in Wonderland retelling, or Alice in Wonderland reimagining, because there are some themes that I tackle that aren't in the original book, but I feel like it's more modern. And so I did all of this, and I started writing chapters. And then, of course, I went back to school. And going back to school, I switched my major once or twice. And of course, switching my major pushed my graduation date. So I was doing more projects and more work. And of course, I added a minor. I added a creative writing minor because I wanted to be writing. But of course, in creative writing, you have all these workshops and you have writing prompts, and you have to write your stuff based off of that. So I can't really work on my novel as a part of my grade. I think one of my friends who's also a writer, they told me they mostly did that in grad school. When they went to grad school to get their MFA in creative writing, their grad project or thesis was their novel, the manuscript for their novel. And I was like, oh, so I need to go back to grad school. Cool. I don't know if I'll actually do that. Never say never, but like, we'll see. So that was the thought, but I wasn't working on my novel as much. And then, of course, life happens. I was going through a lot of stuff, especially between the ages of 21 and 26. I was going through a lot. Okay. It was a real struggle, a lot of personal issues, a lot of family things, a lot of changes in my life and changes in my friendships and relationships, and just adjusting to adulthood and graduating and all the things. But every time my mind will go back to this novel, it will go back to this project, and I would touch it in some way or another, either reworking the outline or coming up with new characters or coming up with new themes to put into the book, or going back to the original text to kind of find a way to make it my own and my story, because it is sort of like a retelling, or rewriting chapters. And I know a lot of my writer friends tell me, just write everything, get the first draft down, finish it, blah, blah, blah. You could do the rewriting later and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, I have not been listening to y'all. I've been reworking the same 5 chapters for the past 2 years, because every time I open it, I would like write it, finish it, then not touch it for months, weeks, days, a year, maybe. And then I would come back to it, read what I wrote so I can find where I was and hop back in. And then when I read what I wrote, I'm like, oh no, wait, I kind of want to change this now. So then I end up editing, and then editing turns into rewriting. So again, I've been rewriting the same chapters over and over, but I still be writing like scenes as they come to me, like ideas as they come to me. This is why, as a writer, I always go everywhere with my notebook. My journal is always in my bag all the time. And I also have my note-taking app on my phone and my computer, and it's synced up to the cloud. So every time I want to add something to that specific file folder of everything related to my novel, it syncs up. So when I get home, it's already there on my computer, because I have it on my phone too. And, so I'm like, ugh. And then every time people ask me like, what are you working on and blah, 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 or whatever. Sure, I've gotten ideas for other stuff, like other novels. I've had a couple of fantasy ideas. I've had a romance novel idea. Of course, I write poetry still every now and then. So I'm thinking, maybe I should put out a collection of poems. But then I would be like, well, my main project is this Alice in Wonderland retelling set in Atlanta. And they'll be like, oh, tell me about it. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to, because I kind of sort of have it figured out. I kind of don't. I also don't want to tell too much and someone tries to steal my idea or something like that, or steals my baby and claim it as theirs. That's like a really big fear of mine, especially while it's still being worked on, because I'm like, now I definitely need to change it because now you want it, that sort of thing. So every time someone asks me about it, like, oh, what's the novel you're working on? A queer Alice in Wonderland retelling set in Atlanta. And that's all I say, because even with that prompt, if someone were to write their own version, I am pretty sure it will not be like mine. The only people who know specific details about this novel and all the things that's in it, the themes, the action, what's going to happen, like my whole outline, besides my journal and my notebook, is my best friend, who also lives with me. So she's my roommate too, but she's the only one who knows everything. Not even my writer friends don't know everything. They just know certain things, or I've given them a nugget here or there, especially if I was trying to figure something out. Like, for example, and I will say this, the typical thing in every Alice work is the phrase, eat me and drink me, because of the cake that she eats to get big and the little vial of potion that she drinks to get small. And I was discussing that, staple with a writer friend of mine. We were out at a bar, just having fun, drinking, whatever, hanging out. And she gave me this really, really good idea about how I could use that in the context of my novel. Because she knows some things too, but I'm not going to tell y'all everything, because I eventually want y'all to pick this book up one day and just read it when it's all done and pretty and being published and stuff. But she gave me this really, really cool idea. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then we could tie it in with and she was like, yeah, tie it in with that. And I'm like, okay, we got it. I'm going to write this down, blah, 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 whatever. So she helped me figure that out. And so I was like happy about that, but no one else knows any like real details. And even when I asked for writing advice from my writer friends or from my author friends or my mentors, I don't fully tell them everything because I'm still trying to keep it perfect in my head. Because I know as soon as I put it on the paper, it's not going to be exactly the same. And again, I keep revisiting it and changing it and changing it and changing it and never really quite finishing it. But it's such a part of me and it's so stuck to me. I just need to see it. I want to see it. That is my dream. I want to see it on shelves. I want to see it in readers' hands. I wanted to connect with someone the way that Alice in Wonderland connected with me. I wanted to be someone's escape. And I also just wanted to be a fun romp, a fun read. But as I've grown older with this book, this project being like at the forefront of my brain, it of course has evolved and everything, because originally when I had this idea, I thought it was going to be a YA novel. But as I'm exploring some of the themes in my book, I was like, this might be leaning more towards adult fantasy than YA fantasy like I originally intended. But we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. It's still going to be great, and everything. So the whole thing is, I've been going back and forth with this novel for so long. I am determined to finish it, especially because every time I talk about it, the first thing people ask me is it done? I would love to read it. I would love to help you get it published or whatever. Is it done? And I'm like, no. And then they're like, what are you waiting for? And I'm like, I don't know. Not really. I mean, part of me is scared. Part of me is feeling like maybe I'm not the right person to write it. But I know that's like the insecurities and the imposter syndrome talking to me. And I have to get past that. So to push myself to get past that, this November, I am finishing this novel. I am determined to finish it. And what I am doing is we're doing a chapter a day for the entire month. So by the time the month is over, I should have a minimum of 30 chapters. Depending on the flow of the story and how it's going, it might be more chapters than that. Possibly might be less chapters than that. I don't know for sure yet. But my goal for November is to essentially write a chapter a day. Write and finish one chapter a day. So by the time you're listening to this episode, if my posting schedule is correct, I should have 4 chapters completed and should be currently working on chapter 5. Now, granted, like I mentioned earlier, I've been working on the same 5 chapters for the past several years. And when I say that, I mean reading it and rewriting it, reading it and rewriting it and whatever. So I will say I've done a read through of chapters 1 through 3 because those are for sure finished. Those are like for sure finished. I'm not touching those again. I gave myself a little 3-day head start by finishing those and rereading it to work on chapter 4. And then by the time this episode is out, chapter 4 should be done. And I'm going to just keep going from there, because also if I'm working on a chapter a day, that means the novel is still living in my head from what I wrote last to where I won't need to reread it to try and get myself back into it and then end up changing stuff and fixing stuff. The goal for the month is to get everything down to get draft 1 finished so that we can start the real work of querying it and editing it and finding a publisher or an agent or both and getting into readers' hands and finding a cover artist. And that's if I go the self-publishing route. If I go the trad publishing route, that's a whole different ball game. But the whole point is to get draft 1, or in my mind, draft -0 down and finished. So for November, you're going to be hearing me go into different aspects of the writing, the struggles, the fears, the problems, the topics and discussions that stem from something I run into, or, things like that or whatever. But I'm going to say so far, I'm excited and I'm happy. I'm happy to be getting back into this project that I've been loving for so long. And I'm looking forward to actually having it finished, because I know I'm capable of writing a novel in a month. I've done it before. I will do it again. But I really, really, really want to put my focus and energy into this project. All the other projects that I started and never finished. They're going to stay started and never finished for now. I will revisit them when this book, this novel is done. And I mean done in the way like it is out in the world and my publisher or even my readers are like, what are you going to write next? But that's essentially what this episode is. It's to be a intro into this writing challenge that I have. So the goal is a chapter a day and to have the novel, if not completely finished, then definitely 90% finished by the end of the month, to where maybe like the first week or two of December, I'm finishing it. Again, it depends on if the book's going to be more than 30 chapters or not. I do have an accountability partner to help me do that. And I also have all my notes, everything with me. I have my tracker. I have just everything that I could possibly need. The only real challenge is to sit down and actually write. So I'm going to be finding time, even if it's like an hour, 2 hours a day, to sit and write. My goal is to like maybe go to a cafe when I get off work, or to a restaurant or a bar or something, somewhere that's not my house, and just sit and write until the chapter is done. When the chapter is done, then I can leave the table. That is my goal. Or maybe I'll write during my lunch breaks at work if I'm not reading anything. But that's really it for this episode. It's just to tell you guys that I am back to writing. I am looking forward to it. For the entire month of November, all the episodes are going to be writing-centered episodes. So if you are an aspiring writer, if you love creative writing, whether it's a passion or a hobby or, a aspiring career for yourself, then you'll definitely want to tune into these episodes, because we are all in this together. And if you're participating in this challenge with me, if you want to, you don't have to. Or if you are doing your own little version of a writing challenge for the month of November, just to exercise your writing skills or to finish that work in progress that you've had sitting for a while, feel free to reach out. Feel free to leave a comment. Let's be writing partners together. Let's keep each other accountable. Let's help each other out, because I love the writing community when we have a writing community. It sometimes feels like you're all on your own, but you're not. But thank you guys for listening to me ramble. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Aries Bookish Wonderland. I look forward to you all falling down the rabbit hole again into my crazy mixed up world of reading and writing. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.